Hello, everyone, and welcome to a short version of Police Off the Cuff. We know yesterday that FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before Congress, and in his testimony, certain things came up that we hadn't heard before, mostly because we hadn't had transparency from our government, and specifically from the Director of the Secret Service. However, we learned some things yesterday that perhaps give us a little better insight as to what occurred. It's still not clear, and I always preach to everyone that investigation takes time. You can have an investigation, but to get accurate information, you have to allow the time to go forward in order to decipher the information, understand the information. And even in Director Wray, in his testimony, he wasn't clear on every single topic because there's such a voluminous amount of information. There's some contradictory information. And he, in his testimony before Congress yesterday, seemed not totally clear on everything that occurred. However, it was a breath of fresh air coming from him rather than the director of the Secret Service, who we all know was disastrous. It just was absolutely disastrous, that testimony. And that's why the next day, of course, after she was interviewed, after she did her disastrous presentation in front of a congressional hearing, she had to resign. There was no way she could stay around. Kimberly Cheadle took a beating like I had never seen before in front of Congress, and the resignation was something that, had she not chosen to resign on her own, I believe she would have been impeached, and probably rather quickly. News Nation reported with a former assistant director of the FBI on Christopher Wray's testimony yesterday. And I want to play a little bit of this on News Nation, from News Nation. It's Mr. Swicker, who was a former assistant director of the FBI. Let's listen to a little bit of what he had to say in regards to this investigation.
Of the FBI, Chris Swicker. Chris, great to have you here. Wray revealed quite a lot in his testimony today, which is unusual because the investigation's ongoing. First, that drone that Crooks flew for 11 minutes over the area outside the security perimeter at 4 p.m. when police and Secret Service were already in place. Why didn't anyone notice that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think Chris Wray did a good job of answering a lot of questions today. He obviously didn't want to make the same mistake that the Secret Service director made and look like he was hiding things, even though he did not delve into the Secret Service security plans and their actions. But why they didn't never notice the drone? He was on the premises 3 different times. He climbed up the side of a building. He revealed, that was revealed. There's no ladder. He had a collapsible AR. So
there's 3 instant facts that they gave us right away. He reconned the location with a drone when security was in place. How is that possible? We expect much, much more from our Secret Service. We expect much, much more from, wouldn't they have reported to the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and to make that a no-fly zone, at least during the time of the rally and before that, because so someone couldn't recon the location in order to do something devious like that was obviously done at this location. Number 2, that we learned yesterday from Christopher Wray's testimony, there was no ladder. He did not bring a ladder to the site. Somehow he climbed up on the roof, perhaps on the air conditioner, and was able to gain access to the roof. The other thing was that the AR-15, as it's been described, or an AR-15-like weapon, had a collapsible stock, which no doubt would have made it way more concealable, perhaps putting it inside your pants, inside your pant leg, because it collapsed. So it wasn't as long as a regular rifle. So those three things that we learned from FBI Director Wray's testimony yesterday was very important, because the rumors are running rampant online and everywhere else, the conspiracy theorists. And I think it was important that he did address those things. And we'll go back to Chris Circa right now and hear what else FBI Director Christopher Wray reported yesterday.
We don't know if they had a sling or what. So I'm guessing yes, because how can he climb up there, holding the AR in one hand? But I think Chris did a good job of answering questions today, and we're much further down the road than we were before his testimony.
We learned a lot in his testimony today, including that the drone was found in Crooks's car along with a bulletproof vest and 3 crude homemade bombs. Given what?
Well, in actuality, I'm not sure that they found. I know that they had a total of 3 improvised explosive devices, but what I understood, and this is why there's always confusion, is that 2 of them were in the vehicle and 1 was found in his home. So there lies where there can be plenty of confusion, because we sometimes remember what the press has reported, what the online community, what the conspiracy theorists are talking about, and we don't reach out for the exact facts. And with Christopher Wray's presentation yesterday to Congress, as professional as he is and as much as a highly respected law enforcement boss of the FBI is, there were certain things that he didn't know. And things change, and maybe all of the information is not even available yet to the director of the FBI. And that's questions we have.
I know you're speculating, but what do you think his plan was?
The plan obviously is to do exactly what he did. I mean, he did his reconnaissance. He used his drone.
But did he think he'd survive this and get back to the car? And I mean, I'm not really. Was he hoping to set the bombs off in the car as a distraction? What do you think this was?
Could have been. I mean, I'm not sure he's thought it all the way through. If he was trying to get out of there, that was a suicide mission. And, his immature 20-year-old brain may not have been able to fathom that. The bombs, I mean, he obviously had plans for the bombs. Yeah, it didn't go off. Maybe he thought he had rigged them and he had the remote in his hand, and maybe he tried to detonate the bombs. He may have been hurried by the officer that peeked over the edge, and then fell back down. And, that may have rushed all his plans.
We also have this new body cam video showing the Secret Service had a picture of Crooks before his attack. He was on their radar and yet somehow slipped away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a communication slip up. It's sloppy communication. They have local officers and state police in their command post, on their radio channels. They have the ability to relay to the person sitting right next to you with the Secret Service any suspicious threat, anything that they're concerned about. And that just, they apparently didn't pass to the Secret Service, or the Secret Service judgment was, well, not significant enough to get the president off, or not put him on the podium at all. Bad judgment all the way around. Bad communication and terrible judgment.
Wray says that Crooks was a loner. He had very few contacts in his cell phone. The FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit is working on a personality profile of Crooks. How do they do that?
They said earlier, of course, and last week I had Patrick Ryder on, who is the Nassau County Police Commissioner here in New York. And he said, and he's a man of quite a lot of experience, recently ran one of the biggest security operations in Eisenhower Park for the World Cricket Championships. Hundreds of thousands of people showed up in that park, and there was some terrorist threats, and they secured that event, which was over a 9-day period, seamlessly without incident. He said that the shooter Thomas Crooks was sort of like almost the profile of many active shooters that we see or have seen over the last few years. And that, I believe, besides his goal was to shoot former President Trump, I believe he wasn't going to stop there. I believe he was going to keep shooting. He had 90 rounds on him. He had 3 30-round magazines. That's indicative of an active shooter. So if that was the case, then this was 100% a suicide mission. Yet there were indications that he maybe intended to try to survive this. The IEDs, the vehicle nearby. He really thought that somehow, again, in his 20-year-old brain, that there was a way out of this. And that's something I don't think there was a possibility of.
That, and what purpose does that serve?
Yeah, I mean, it gives us an educated guess into his motive. They'll look at it all, his talk to his parents, talk to whoever may have associated with him in school, anyone he may have communicated with, any writings he may have left behind, where he traveled to, what he did, what his hobbies were, et cetera. I mean, they'll dissect his life. I don't put a huge amount of faith in that. That's kind of an educated guess. I think we can look at this guy and you can tell what he's all about. I mean, he's a loner. He Googles Oswald.
Yeah.
He has, we can't pretend to understand the motive of a mind that works like that. It seems to me he just wanted to be noticed.
Yeah, we don't know even today the real motive behind Lee Harvey Oswald's assassination of JFK. Is it possible we may never know the motive of this man?
And the Las Vegas shooter. I mean, sometimes they just take it with them. Yeah, this guy strikes me as more of a John Hinckley type. He has his own reasons. He's not quite as overt in expressing what his reasons are, but it looked like he was having trouble deciding what high-profile figure to go after. Apparently,
Trump,
he was Googling multiple, right.
Yeah,
so I think he just wanted to be noticed.
Really sad. Chris Wecker.
Very.
In his searches, they had indicated that he had searched Biden, he had searched Trump, and like as Chris Wecker just said, seemed like he was having a difficult time deciding what high-level public figure or candidate or political figure he was going to go after. And that's why the investigation, digging deeply into his background, is quite important, and again, they may never find out the motive. John F. Kennedy shot in 1963, I believe it was. They never found out what Lee Harvey Oswald's motive was. However, that really looked like a conspiracy because Lee Harvey Oswald never even got to speak because he was himself executed by a man named Jack Ruby before he could even speak to the police. So we don't see any conspiracy theory in that way. But, when I do these shows, I get all kinds of texts, all kinds of people in the chat telling me, oh, you should know this is a conspiracy. The left wanted him dead. They sent this guy there. Iran is involved. There's no evidence to that, and, that is, I think, damaging to the actual investigation. And it doesn't serve the purpose. And if it comes up one day that there is evidence to that fact, then absolutely we'll look into it. But you can't from day one start conjecturing. Another thing that Christopher Wray found out, there was 8 spent shells on the rooftop where the shooter was. And to me, that means he fired 8 shots. If those 8 shells came from that AR-15, and they can even ballistically test them to see if the firing pin impression on the primer is the same on all of them and it came from that gun, then it tells you he absolutely fired 8 rounds. But there's people that don't even believe that. There's people that believe that there was 2 shooters. So that's why it's so important to be transparent and get this information out there as quickly as possible. And at least FBI Director Wray was able to shed some light on this where Secret Service Director was not able to.
FBI Director Christopher Wray testified on Capitol Hill Wednesday about the investigation into the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. His testimony comes days after lawmakers criticized now former Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle in a congressional hearing for her agency's security failures before, during, and after the shooting. She resigned less than 24 hours later. While FBI Director Wray didn't divulge too many details about the investigation, he did offer some new information about the shooter.
Analysis of a laptop that the investigation ties to the shooter reveals that on July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy? And so that's a search that obviously is significant in terms of his state of mind. That is the same day that it appears that he registered for the Butler rally.
For more on this, let's bring in Anna Schechter. She's the senior coordinating producer for CBS News Crime and Public Safety Unit. And in addition to that new piece of information, Director Wray revealed a few other details about the gunman. What else did we learn?
Well, we learned that the very next day after that chilling Google search, he went to the rally site and cased it. He spent about 20 minutes there. And then again, the morning of the rally, we learned he went and spent 70 minutes there. So he was really spending a lot of time figuring out, and probably all of that planning helped him get up onto that roof, which is, I think, the big question for everyone watching is how could he have evaded so much law enforcement? But to me, what was really interesting is we learned around 4 p.m., just a couple of hours before that shooting, he flew a drone for 11 minutes over a field near where the rally site was. He was live streaming it, so he was watching in real time the images that the drone was capturing. So he was getting a real clear picture of the area from above, possibly including the roof on top of where that he climbed on and where he took that shot.
And how did the director characterize the search for motive that we've been talking about so much since this attempted assassination? Have they found one? What's the search been like? Did he talk about that?
He did. It was interesting. He talked about how few people were in the contacts list in his phone, fewer than you would expect that other, a 20-year-old would have. He talked about his few interactions in real life with other people. So he really described a loner, which is what we were supposing. But it was interesting to have that level of detail in the testimony today. We also learned a few other things, like he purchased the gun from his father who had bought it. So there was a real transaction there, which was interesting. And a few other details about what he was up to in the week leading up to it. There was a question about this ladder. That was pretty much debunked. He purchased a ladder, but the ladder that he bought was never found on the premises. We do know that he brought a backpack and a bike, and he was sitting at a picnic table. We've learned that from local law enforcement, and local law enforcement was concerned enough about him that they took a photo of him. One of the snipers stationed in the building left the building to go look for him and lost sight of him. So that was all in the confusion of those minutes leading up to him climbing up on the roof with a gun.
So some really, really excellent information came out from FBI Director Wray's testimony yesterday. And I think that should help many of us who are so perplexed at the lack of transparency. And in 9 days from the July 13th shooting, no government entity ever held a press conference on what occurred and the information that they had. So that was very concerning. But at least yesterday, FBI Director Wray shed some light on it. And I think that satisfied many people. Anyway, this is a video short, an update on FBI Director Wray's testimony yesterday before Congress. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories.
One episode just ain't enough.